Tyrese Haliburton is a guy that I expect to make the All-Star team next year.
Would you fall for me like I fall for you?
Alrighty, everybody, welcome back to another episode of NBA Now. It's your boy Dom, and we're gonna get right into things here today. So, today, we are talking about Tyrese Haliburton. Wow, what a start he's had to the Indiana Pacers. So if you guys don't know, he was just recently traded there, and we'll get to the trade details here in just a minute. But ever since getting to the Pacers, he has looked really, really good, and I think we all expected this. Currently, his stats in his first 4 games are 20.8 points per game, 11 assists per game, and 4.3 rebounds per game. Honestly, I think if we're looking at it, right, it's crazy to think that he got traded. This is a guy that he wanted to be a Sacramento King. I mean, there were stories coming out about how he was talking about the next 10, 15 years for Sacramento the day that he was traded to like some of his teammates and stuff. And that he couldn't believe that there were even trade talks going on about him because he felt that like he mattered to the organization and that he wanted to be there for so long and everything like that. But he was traded, and he was like shocked about that and didn't even think it was real until Tristan Thompson like told him, hey, yeah, I got traded too. And now Tristan Thompson's not even on the Pacers. He ended up signing with the Chicago Bulls in the buyout market, a pretty good pickup for them considering all. But yeah, I mean, Tyrese Haliburton, I think, not only now does he have this insane chip on his shoulder. First off, this is a guy that fell in the draft and was picked up as a gem by the Sacramento Kings. Personally, I thought the Phoenix Suns should have targeted him. I thought he could have been mentored under Chris Paul and played a similar role to Chris Paul once Chris Paul left. Now, I didn't think he would be as good as he is now. I thought, maybe in the long term, he's like a 15-point per game scorer, like an 8 assist per game guy, like a really decent role player. Kind of how I describe a Caris LeVert type of player, or something like that, like a 20-point per game role player type of thing. A guy can get you 20, but he's more of a role player than a star for your team. And I mean, in a similar sense to like a LaMelo, or not a LaMelo, Alonzo. Sorry, LaMelo is a star. Lonzo is more of like a 20-point per game role player, if you want to compare it that way. Where they bring these certain elements like that defense, like that playmaking to the game, but maybe they aren't, a guy that you want to go to for a final shot, and you'd rather them just be able to complement your stars. So I just consider those high-end role players. And so I thought that's what Halliburton's ceiling was. Now, I think, he's proven everybody wrong, me included, that he's going to be better than that. And so not only did he come into the league with that chip on the shoulder from dropping in the draft and then being selected by the Sacramento Kings, but he ended up, coming out his rookie season, he fought and almost won Rookie of the Year. Nobody thought his jump shot would translate. I still think it's a little funky, but it's translated and he's been able to get it. I think there's still improvements that can be made with it. And so we'll have to see how that progresses as he kind of molds into Indiana's star, I think, going into the future. And Tyrese Haliburton is a guy that I expect to make the All-Star team next year. I'm just going to say it right now. I expect Tyrese Haliburton to win Most Improved Player. I expect Tyrese Haliburton to make his first All-Star team next year. And I expect, the Pacers to probably be back in the playoffs and, if not better than ever, or better, maybe not better than ever, but like better than recently, right? Because they've kind of been that, middle of the pack team. But I think Tyrese Haliburton is a guy that adds a lot of potential to this team. And then getting a guy like Buddy Hield in the trade as well brings that shooting and that spacing. He wanted out of Sacramento, so now, he's kind of probably in more of a happy place. Indiana's, talked about as like a state of basketball, very fundamental and stuff like that. Now, Buddy Hield might not fit that, but he's one of the best three-point shooters in today's game. Wasn't in a situation that maybe favored him the most. Rick Carlisle should be able to get the most out of both of these guys. And finally, Indiana moved and decided which center they were going to keep. And I think they made the right decision, right? Because if you're looking at the trade, and I will pull up the trade details here while I'm talking about it, but if you're looking at the trade, it's Domantis Sabonis for Tyrese Haliburton and Buddy Hield. I mean, that's the basics of the trade. Now, if we are kind of going further into it, let me pull up Woj's breakdown of the trade. I have to scroll a little bit because it was a few days ago, but it's a trade that really highlights the best possible I think outcome for Indiana. I know teams around the league were shocked that Tyrese Haliburton was able to was on the block even. Like, just as Tyrese Haliburton was shocked that he was on the block, other teams were shocked that he was on the block, just because of the fact that, you know, he's such a good young role player at this point, who looks to be budding into a star right before our eyes. And so, you know, other teams would have called up and probably given more for Tyrese Haliburton had they known that he was available. But they didn't, and so the Pacers really took advantage of this opportunity and turned in a situation that they'd already kind of declared earlier in the season that they were going to try and kind of figure out. For the past probably 3 years, people have been saying, like, hey, you guys got to make a decision. Do you want to stick with Domantis Sabonis, or do you want to stick with Myles Turner, right? Kind of ever since the Oladipo injury and kind of Sabonis' spring onto the scene as an all-star caliber player, it's been that conversation of, well, if you're looking at it, Domantis Sabonis is a guy that, you know, he's that higher level guy, but he doesn't fit on as many teams, right? He doesn't quite have that defensive ability, but he's got that. He's like a soft Jokic, not a soft Jokic. The soft is not the right word. Like a crap version of Jokic, if you want to call it a crap version. I mean, he's an all-star caliber player, but I don't really know exactly what word I'm looking for there. But I think you guys kind of get what I'm saying. Like, he's in that Jokic type of mold of player. I think he takes a lot. You know, when you're looking at him, he's got that passing ability. He's got that inside, maybe not typical kind of crafty scoring ability. And so that's what he, relies on when you're looking at it there. And then here's the details of the trade. But, like, I finally got the details of the trade. But, yeah, he's kind of that, like, a little bit more different big man that he's maybe not high enough that you can build around him. And so it's kind of weird for how you kind of complement him as, like, a star type of thing going on there, because he almost needs to be kind of a focal point of the offense because of how he plays, but he's maybe not elite enough to be an elite team and kind of be a main guy in a championship team. And so that's why I think it was the right decision to choose Myles Turner, because Myles Turner was one of those elite role players, right, where he can get a lot of blocks for you. He's, you know, I think Myles Turner in theory is better than Myles Turner himself. I've said that before on this channel. I got that straight from Through the Wire, and I think it was a perfect line of that. The idea of Myles Turner is better than Myles Turner himself, but Myles Turner is still a very, very valuable piece across the league because of his defensive ability. His contract isn't overly large. He's able to space the floor a little bit. You know, he's not going to sit there and chuck up threes or anything like that, but he can shoot them at a decent rate, kind of in a sense of, you know, I think Brook Lopez's three-point ability got really blown out of proportion when he had his Splash Mountain season where he got his nickname, and he, you know, he's just draining them. And I think that it got blown a little out of proportion. I think Myles Turner is a slightly worse three-point shooter than Brook Lopez, which is still, you know, decent for a big man. Maybe not great, but it's decent. He can stretch the floor, he can block shots. He's kind of in that mold of player that Brook Lopez is. He's locked up long term. So I think he was the better decision to stick with because he molds so much better with other, like, around other players. And I think Tyrese Haliburton is in that same sense where he fits super, super well along players, but I think he's got that potential to be a star. And we'll continue to talk about that here in a minute. I'm going to look at the Kings side of things. So what the trade details was Domantis Sabonis, Jeremy Lamb, and Justin Holiday for Tyrese Haliburton, Buddy Hield, and Tristan Thompson. And then the Pacers also included a 2027 second-round pick to the Kings. So they can have some middle schooler or something as well. But yeah, when you're looking at it, the Sacramento Kings decided, hey, we're going to get rid of this disgruntled guy in Buddy Hield, and we're going to try and push for this playoff spot. Since currently in the NBA, it's kind of open to get those last couple playoff spots over in, or at least play-in spots over in the Western Conference, because when you're looking at the standings, it's like that top six is super, super secure out west, where you have that Phoenix, Golden State, Memphis, Utah, Dallas, Denver. They're all going to make it. It looks like Minnesota's probably a lock to make the playoffs as well this year. But then you've got the Clippers, super injury prone, and they're number 8. Lakers are just, well, I think we all know what the Lakers are. They're just turmoil, constant. Drama, didn't make any trades at the deadline. Probably, you know what, I'll save that take for another video. But they're the Lakers. We all know what the Lakers are at this point. Portland, who is, you know, Dame's out for the season. They clearly are moving towards a rebuild. If not a super weird retool that will end up with Dame being traded the next offseason because it will not work out the way they think it's going to. Either way, Portland's kind of a dumpster fire right now as well, and they're the 10 seed. Then you have San Antonio, who made some moves at the deadline as well, dealing Derek White and stuff. You've got the Pelicans, who Zion, it looks to be potentially out for the whole season, but they did trade for McCollum and might try and make a playoff push as well. And then the Sacramento Kings are right there in that mix, where you have, all these teams are below 500 from the Clippers down any lower. The Clippers at 30 and 31, the Lakers 27 and 31, Portland 25 and 34, where you see that big drop off. Then you've got the Spurs at 23 and 36. Pelicans at 23 and 36, and the Kings like 1.5 games behind that at 22 and 38. So the Kings are kind of right there in that little last spot type of chase. Who knows? Lakers could fall out of that as well, especially the way LeBron's been talking at the All-Star game. I'm sure that will help their chemistry a ton. But yeah, so it leaves those last like 2-3 spots open for that play-in available, and the Kings decided that they were going to go on it. Now I think a lot of that is because they've drafted talent. The Kings have done a really good job the last 3 or 4 draft classes of drafting talent. I think, Marvin Bagley is maybe the guy you look back and you're like, oh, wow, that was kind of a miss. Obviously, we see that he's going to have a new opportunity in Detroit and everything like that. And so, I hope the best for him and everything. But they have a lot of talent at point guard, right? Halliburton really is a true point guard. De'Aaron Fox is a modern point guard. And then Davion Mitchell is, I saw this comparison the other day and I was like, wow, I can't believe I haven't heard this more. Davion Mitchell is the next Kyle Lowry. For sure. Undersized guard, super good defensively, super gritty. He's like a mix of a Kyle Lowry and a Patrick Beverley, except he doesn't act like a rodent on the court and just annoy people. Just to annoy people. He just does it with his defensive ferocity. And so, having saturated a position so much, we knew that a trade was coming. We had seen the De'Aaron Fox rumors to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons. Obviously, we knew that Sacramento wanted Ben Simmons. The weird thing being that the 76ers were hell-bent on not trading Matisse Thybulle, who I did hear this comparison earlier watching a Rusty Buckets video. Make sure you guys go check him out, where he said he's just the Australian Andre Roberson. And I think I'd never thought of it that way, but he's moving closer towards that. Matisse Thybulle needs to be able to play some offense. He doesn't need to be able to come off the dribble, but that guy needs to learn how to shoot. He has got such good defensive instincts, such good defensive ability, that if he can learn how to shoot or just really take it to the rim strong, get something in his offensive bag, it would be amazing. Now, I think he's better than Roberson probably ever was. It's even just on the defensive end. I think he's better than Roberson ever was. Due to his instincts and being able to steal the ball, versus Roberson was a little bit more of that one-on-one guy that you just kind of throw on them and just know that's probably, maybe you don't throw it on like their best player, but you throw it on like their second best player and know that guy's not going to do anything for like the whole game because it's just Roberson. He's a super good one-on-one defender, or he was when he was in the league, kind of fell out of the league because he couldn't shoot at all. And who knows, Matisse Thybulle might have that issue if he doesn't learn how to do some stuff in the future. But this isn't a video about Matisse Thybulle. And so we saw the Sacramento Kings move on from some stuff. Tristan Thompson was a guy that I thought they really liked. I mean, looking at their Instagram page, they seemed to post about him a lot. He seemed to really fit in with this locker room. He seemed to really like being that mentor role. Now, he's Tristan Thompson, so he's got his Kardashian stuff off the court and everything like that, but he seemed like he was enjoying being with the Sacramento Kings. Not something that a lot of players particularly enjoy. So him and Tyrese Haliburton, two guys that seem to enjoy this team a lot, were shipped off, and they, in favor, kept the star that didn't want to be there in De'Aaron Fox. And we'll see how that bodes for them in the future. Now, I believe he's locked up long term, so it's not, there's the Ben Simmons thing that, maybe provides some stuff there for him to potentially get an out, but I'm sure we'll see some hard negotiations from the owners and potentially a lockout pending for the next player association's negotiation because of all the Ben Simmons drama and all the star movement that's continued to just ramp up every year in the last few years. Now, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that. That's a video for another day. But the Sacramento Kings decided they were going to push for the playoffs, and they felt the best way was to kind of remove some of the saturation from that pool of players that they had, which I think is super, super smart. I do think they made the wrong decision in who they moved, but they had the right train of thought of how they needed to go about this. And so they go after, they get Domantis Sabonis, a guy who I think actually fits fairly well with De'Aaron Fox, especially if you're using him as a playmaker, and then you're kind of using De'Aaron Fox as that more of drive and kick guy, which I've seen them do ever since, kind of using Justin Holiday and some of those other guys on the wing to just, hey, I'm going to drive it. Sabonis is here kind of in that short post. You guys be on the wing, open for a three. We're going to try and make our stars get our other guys open. Kind of a smart way to play it. And that's kind of the direction that they're going. So they decided, hey, we have a shot to make the play-in. We haven't made the playoffs in, God, longer than most people have been alive on planet Earth, probably. And so we're going to try and actually do it, right? And then on the Pacers side of things, it's brilliant. It is brilliant. This might be the smartest move of the deadline, and there was so many moves at the deadline. I think the Wizards move was super smart. I think the Nets and 76ers move has its ups and downs, which obviously I talked about that in the last video. Make sure you guys go check that out. But this was by far and away the smartest and the most opportunistic move out of the Pacers. It was a team that we knew was selling. It was a team that wanted to shake stuff up, and they did it in the perfect way. Okay, they took Tyrese Haliburton, and they didn't really get much for him, but it shows that they respect their players in a way of, hey, I believe Tyrese Haliburton got cancer or something like that. I remember he got something big, and so the fact that he's even being able to play is super. Shout out to him and all the love. He deserves everything that he can get. I've actually been a little, not, I wouldn't say a fan. I would I love Tyrese Haliburton or anything like that, but I've been rooting for Tyrese Haliburton kind of ever since he was with Brooklyn Nets and he was hitting game winners, and him and D'Lo were looking like an up and coming duo. I've kind of liked just him as a player since then. Maybe not been a fan of him, but I've liked him as a player since then. So, I hope the best for him in Cleveland. I think that's a good fit for them there. Obviously, I also talked about that in my video a couple days ago as well. But they were kind of, respectful, traded him to a market where he's going to be able to be in the playoffs and kind of get stuff. They didn't get a ton in return, but they did clear up some cap space, got a pick. I mean, they're going to kind of move on from things with that. But they were super opportunistic with this Tyrese Haliburton trade. They took that big that, was probably the least likely to fit with whatever stars you compare, and they traded him in order to get a Tyrese Haliburton who's going to fit with whatever star that you are potentially able to get put next to him, right? If TJ Warren potentially comes back and we see Bubble Warren again, God, this team will be back in the playoffs. This team will be back in the playoffs. They're going to get a top pick this year as well, and so you're going to be adding in a draft that has a lot of top-end potential. I think probably ranging into pick 8, you might see stars come out of this draft. This is looking to be one of the better draft classes in a long, long time. I know I think when you look over to the NFL right now, this is a very deep class in the NFL draft-wise, but it's maybe not high end of QB that we're typically of seeing in the NFL. But then you look at the NBA, we've seen that James Wiseman, Anthony Edwards draft. I think it looks better than it did at the time, but there was okay, there's 3 guys and then nobody else, and there has been some other people. But this draft class, it's not going to be you look at Giannis's draft, Giannis and CJ's draft, right? That draft class has worked out as one of the weaker. If Giannis didn't come out of that and kind of rise up to be the MVP that he is, that draft class would be god awful. As CJ being your best player at that point from that draft class. Now CJ's an all-star caliber player, but he's never made an all-star team at this point, and that would be a pretty disappointing draft class. But this next draft class that's coming up, it is looking like this last draft class where we just saw Cade Cunningham and all these other guys come out. I think there's some potential that, Paulo Banchero's a star, Chet Holmgren's a star, Jabari Smith can be a star. There's some guards in this class that really look interesting. I'm sure one of them will pop. Which one it is, I'm not entirely sure. But this draft class is looking actually pretty decent. Reminds me a little bit of the LaMelo draft class, but I think, again, once we see these players come into the league, we're going to see more players than we thought that are really impactful come out of this next draft class. And so having a high draft pick for the Indiana Pacers, along with potentially getting, the most improved player of next season in Tyrese Haliburton, a guy that, again, like I said, I expect him to win most improved. I expect him to probably make an all-star team next year. He will be the Darius Garland of next year, right? Darius Garland flew onto the scene this year and kind of finally showed us what he can be. Tyrese Haliburton's going to do that next year. If not, he's going to finish off this year and really have people... And he might not even be able to win most improved player because he's going to inflate his stats so much this year that he won't go up enough. Now, I don't think that should really matter at that point, since we gave the most improved player to Julius Randle, a guy that went up 1 point per game, and we've seen that he probably didn't deserve that. But I think, he's my pick for most improved player next year, and he's going to fit with whichever of those talented guys that you get that's young. He's going to fit next to him. Myles Turner is going to fit next to him. TJ Warren can fit next to guys because he learned how to shoot the three once he went to the Indiana Pacers. And when you do a rundown of this Indiana Pacers roster, this is a team that is ready to just have a star inserted into it and can kind of make things happen. And even at this point, I mean, Atlanta's 28-30 as the 10 seed. Washington is right after that at 27-31, but I think Beal's announced done for the year. New York is a dumpster fire at 25-34. So yeah, you're 20-40. But there might, those last two play-in spots right now, they're not above 500. So if you can only lose like 5 more games, you'll be close to making that 10 seed. I don't think you will, but maybe you lose a little bit. I wouldn't try to lose pick value. I would try and, honestly, if I was the Pacers, I would try and tank, because currently you're at the 5th pick. Prior to lottery, and if you can get in that top 3 potentially, that would be huge for this franchise. I really hope that they get a high pick. I would love to see Banchero go there. I think that would be my favorite player to see get added to this roster. But yeah, when you kind of do a rundown of this team, and you look at some of the players on here, it's a team that is ready to have a star just inserted into it, and whether it be a young guy or whether it be somebody you kind of find as a diamond in the rough in free agency or something like that. I think this next free agency class is maybe not the free agency class you want to do that in, but maybe next year's, you let Tyrese do it and you kind of go from there. And plus, Indiana is probably not a big free agent destination, so I don't know if I'd bet on that. So having this pick is super, super beneficial for them. But when you are looking, sorry, it does not want to pull up this team's players. But when you're looking at this team's players, right? So you've got you have sorry about that. So yeah, Buddy Hield, he fits super well with pretty much anybody you put out there with him, especially having Tyrese in the backcourt as better perimeter defender. Brissett, he fits well next to guys. Jalen Smith is a guy that they were able to acquire. He's a guy that has shown a lot of potential this year, so who knows, maybe he can kind of become an asset for you. I don't know if I want to have him starting next to Myles Turner long term. And then Lance Stevenson, he's kind of come back in the league, and I think he just should have been a Pacer his whole career. He is the best when he's a Pacer. He's funny as a Pacer. He's just a jokester. It's kind of hilarious to laugh at him and laugh with him a little bit, but he fits well next to people. If you can bring Tristan Thompson back, again, another bench guy. How much you really need him, though, having Batadze, Smith, and Turner. Maybe a little much there. Chris Duarte will fit really well, or potentially work well in a trade, especially if you're getting another high pick. You know what I mean? Maybe use that high pick. You use Duarte, you use Goga Batadze. Young players and a pick. That's the formula to get young players, a high pick, and a couple other picks. That's a formula to get a star. And I think if you bring a star to Indiana, I think you can learn to love Indiana. I think Oladipo is the only guy that has gone to Indiana and not learned to love it. I think Paul George would have loved to win in Indiana. We saw what he did there. I think Sabonis really embraced Indiana. I think even when Oladipo had his 1 year, he embraced Indiana, but it was after that where he was injured and then stuff kind of came up contract-wise and all that I think made him want out and just kind of wanted to end that situation. But he did embrace Indiana that 1 year where he was very, very good, where he was one of the best guards in the league. And where, he almost beat the LeBron-led Cleveland Cavaliers, something not many teams can say they did. But, like, Tyrese is going to embrace Indiana because he's going to have that chip on his shoulder coming from Sacramento. He embraced Sacramento, so there's no way he doesn't embrace Indiana. This guy's going to be on your team for the next 10 years for sure, Indiana Pacers fans, so be happy about that. But it seems like every star player that's been there, Reggie Miller, if you're even looking farther back into the past, they all have wanted to be in Indiana. And so I think if you can get a star there, it's not the destination I think they'd pick initially, but it's a destination I think they'd stay in, especially if it's the right personality, which obviously you're going to have to look at. But if it's the right personality and a star becomes available, this is a spot to get him. This is the spot to get him. This is the perfect spot if you're a wing star, if, a team's deciding to blow it up or something like that. Now, I can't think of a star off the top of my head that exactly would fit super well for this, but if some wing becomes available, if a Brandon Ingram becomes available or something, you throw Brandon Ingram on this team, and you're giving them, Chris Duarte for shooting, and Goga Batadze, as another young big over there, and then obviously a high pick as well, that maybe they want to pair with Zion. That's a guy that I think would be, if he, ends up becoming available. I don't think he should. But if he becomes available, if an OG Anunoby becomes available, again, a guy that I think has some more potential he could tap into, this might be a spot for him. Guys like that you can get to buy into your team, I think is the way to target it. And try and go for potential. Try and get that one more star next to Halliburton, and this team could really have a shot to do stuff coming into the future. So, yeah, I'm sure Indiana Pacers fans are loving this team. I have talked way too long about the Indiana Pacers, especially for their record this year. But yeah, I'm super excited to see Halliburton continue to play with this team. And honestly, I'm excited for Indiana Pacers fans because I know they have had nothing interesting to watch for the last few years. And this for sure, I know the Pacers wanted to get people to fill up their seats in the arena. This will fill up some seats in the arena, having Tyrese Haliburton out there. So yeah, you guys are pretty lucky as Indiana Pacers fans. Shout out to you guys, and best of luck. Best of luck. That's been it from me. Let me know what you guys think of the move down below. Let me know who you guys think won the trade. For me, it's a landslide win for Indiana. Little bit puzzling from Sacramento's side, although I see where they're trying to go with it. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe for more, and I'll catch y'all next time. Peace out, guys.